Hello, my name is Natalie Gregg, and I'm here with Luke Suminski for our podcast for the Lofts of Natalie Gregg, where we believe your most precious asset is your family. And here we're talking about assets. How appropriate.
It makes it fun, right? It makes it fun. So
Money is always fun, right?
yeah, well, not when you're splitting it though.
Yeah, so when you split a lot of money in half, what do you have?
50-50. Worst case scenario, right?
Yes. So, Luke, give me some of your background. I know that you've been with Encircle Wealth Advisors, and you have both your CDFA, and you'll explain what that is in just a moment, and your CFP.
Yes.
Could you tell us what those credentials mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been with Encircle Wealth Advisors now since 2021. So I originally came from Oregon and moved down here, was at Ameriprise practice up there, and moved down because believed in what our founder, Sam Thornell, does with financial planning. And so he pushed me to get the CDFA, and I already had my CFP coming on down. And the CDFA, to kind of give a little bit more detail, is the Certified Divorce Financial Analyst certification. We use part of it, but we'll dive into that a little bit later. And we mostly focus on the CFP, being the Certified Financial Planner.
And you just talked about your partner, Sam Thornell. Can you tell us what his ethos is? What is his passion, and how do you share that, and how do you use that in your practice?
Great question. He believes in financial planning, right? Which is why he picked Ameriprise Financial. He's been with them for 22 years. That's where his career started, with financial planning, and he focuses on that first and foremost with people's goals and making sure that we can get them towards those goals, right? It's making sure that we're getting them to their desired destination rather than staying in the same old over and over. So he originally, the reason why he's a CDFA and he focuses on divorce is actually 20 years ago, he started to see a lot of his clients ended up being single, and a lot of his clients are going through a divorce, and he found this process of, he was already doing divorce divisions. He was already on these cases, and he thought, well, how do we not have something that's a professional designation that's already involved? And actually, he found another attorney who had changed into an advisor to do the CDFA program. So she found that this actual CDFA program to take care of divorcees and make sure that they're actually seeing what their life could look like post-divorce. And because sadly, a lot of her clients, she saw right off the bat, within 5 years, I believe, a lot of them were going bankrupt.
So it sounds like it could be almost like a lottery situation where you hear these stories, or there's even reality shows about them. They get $10 million, and that sounds like a lot of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1 or 2 years, it's gone. And is that something that inspired your partner, Sam?
Oh, absolutely. Make sure they can see how they can keep more of their dollars, and also making sure that they don't go bankrupt. Right.
Like MC Hammer.
Mm-hmm.
He's like infamous for that.
Same exact thing, right? Now, obviously a little different, right, with the divorce process and all,
Sure.
But it comes back to the fact that people don't understand what this money can do for them long term, and they don't understand what their spending habits can really lead to down the line.
Well, in every relationship, there's a different dynamic. So there's sometimes, I see it a lot, where I have a spouse who comes in, I know everything about the estate. I can write it in my sleep. I don't need to do discovery. I don't need to even worry about it because I know where everything is. And then sometimes I will ask, what is your mortgage? And they don't even know. I don't even know if I have a mortgage. How much do you think you're worth? What do you think your net worth is, essentially? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little alarming. And so some of this is just about education and discovering what's under this rock and what's behind door number 1, 2, and 3, because you can't choose. Do you want, on The Price is Right, do you want door number 1? Well, if it's a pickup truck and the other one's a jet, I think you probably want the jet, depending on how reasonable you are.
Yeah, absolutely. We just see so many times people don't understand what's actually out there for their financial situation.
And so how do you use this to educate clients during the divorce process, and then even post-divorce?
Yeah, we give them a financial snapshot of where they are now, right? And we'll talk, of course, about spreadsheets and all the things that we love, right? That's my love language there. But it's right. And so understanding what their financial life looks like right now, and then what it can be post-divorce, and it's getting granular, right? Understanding that, okay, what does worst case scenario look like for you? You get a better proposal or a better split than, which of course, as we know, doesn't happen a ton, but
Right.
it allows them to see what it can be post-divorce and basically giving them clarity on their goals. Because so many people do come in, they're like, oh, I know my mortgage is this much. Do you know what it looks like if you're only on your own income? Do you know what it looks like to then refinance your mortgage? Right? And so we're able to then give them clarity and walk them through what it would look like post-divorce.
And so maybe one of your goals for clients to take that emotional aspect and that entrenchment out of where they stand today and look at, maybe I'm not that attached to the marital residence, or maybe I don't need that second car, the lake house, or the boat.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought that up because there is a difference between the emotional side of this transaction, right,
Sure.
versus the business side of this transaction. I always tell people at the end of the day, when we're looking at finances, it's a business transaction, right? You might be emotionally tied to things, but the goal is we need to get you from the emotional to almost the logical, which is always hard because this is one of the most difficult situations that they're going through. And it might be the most difficult situation that they've gone through. So we're trying to walk with them through it and also give them the logical situation of what can happen.
And sometimes we have to deliver some maybe not so friendly news. And how do you and your partner specifically, Sam, sounds like is very skilled at maybe having to deliver the fact that we're not going to get the marital residence or this is not the best financial choice.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about doing that?
We always first have conversations about their finances first, get them in the door, allow them to actually see on the financial plan through our software of what their post-divorce life looks like.
So
And then
you do projections.
we do projections to really show them, okay, if you take the house, here's what it actually looks like. And allow them to answer the question of should they keep the house or not. Because at that point, if they don't understand it, then we're very honest with people, right? We're brutally honest. Sam more so than I am, right? Got a little more, yeah.
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah,
right?
good cop, bad cop when we're in the room, obviously. So he always leans on that side, but it's allowing them to make a decision for themselves. Because at the end of the day, I can tell them, because I've seen multiple divorces, you've seen multiple divorces, that, hey, you might not need this marital residence. But allowing them to make the decision on their own after they see what their life can look like post-divorce, it's one of the greatest things that we can do for them.
So I think that would be financial empowerment, right? And a lot of times, some of it is just if you get down to their macro goals. So I want to be secure in a safe house, not a $2 million house or a $5 million house. I want my child to go to this specific school district. I want to make sure that we can stay in the sport that we're in and the activities that my kids go to within reason, because sometimes we do have to have that really difficult conversation. Are those the types of goals that you're focusing on in your financial planning?
Always, right? We're trying to tailor them to our clients and what they originally have come in for. And in our engagement meeting, whenever we sit down with people, the first thing we're focusing on is financial goals. Obviously, they tell us more about their situation, and usually they share what they're comfortable with, right, and what they're actually going through right now. But our focus is mainly their financial goals and helping them understand as well that it's okay to move if you need to. Right? If you can stay in the house, great, we can walk through that. But we need to show them that it's okay for them to move. And I always ask them, please talk to your therapist because they might tell you the same thing, right?
Sure. Well, therapists will always qualify. I can't make financial choices for you or even give that advice. And then you're like, I can't give emotional choices or psychiatric, but yes. So we all cross, blame one another in this sign.
Yeah.
Hey, why don't you go stay in your lane, your sandbox, right?
Yeah, yes. I always tell them, my clients, I tell them all the time, I said, you can blame me, right? If your kids say anything or whatever it may be, I said, blame me because your financial advisor told you that this is what it would look like. And you made the decision at the end of the day from these projections that this is not the right decision for you.
So how do clients get to you, both in your non-litigation practice and then in your litigation practice?
So how do they come to us and how
Yes, how do they get referred you?
Yep, absolutely. Usually through divorce attorneys, therapists, we've had it from their friends, divorce groups even. So we've actually had referrals come from different Facebook groups too. Okay. But some of the greatest connections we do have are when it's from a personal connection and a personal referral, right? When it comes from clients, that's one of the best areas that we see. And also when they're seeing in their finances when divorce attorneys can't answer the question or won't, because there's a difference between financial advice and legal advice,
Sure.
right? And so we're then able to step in and shore up that gap for clients. And so that's the value that we've usually seen for divorce attorneys, to then say, you need to go have a conversation with Luke and Sam, right?
And do you think that your role in this process is probably best suited entering at the beginning?
Absolutely. We try to tell people, yes, this is great for my business, obviously, if we get them sooner rather than later, but it's more so getting them to the point of, let's step back before divorce, have a conversation, figure out what it is that you need to go after. Okay, when do you need to file? I've had conversations with people on the phone that said, Luke, here's my situation. It's pretty good right now. Should I file for divorce? One, I connect them to the divorce attorney to at least have the conversation, right? That's the very first thing that we do. But it's also allowing them to see from a financial standpoint, okay, what does it look like during this divorce process? What does it look like post-divorce? And if I can have that conversation earlier on, it just makes it easier.
And so you get a client in your office, comes in, and first thing, do you have to use the B word, the budget word?
All the time, right? We try to stay away from it. We call it a spending plan, right?
Oh, I like that euphemism.
Yeah, a little better than the dreaded B word, right? And yes, we do talk through the dreaded B word, the budget. And it's a hard conversation, always, because you're going from 2 incomes to now 1, or maybe not even having an income. Because we've had a lot of people who haven't been back to work for years, right? Or they are now changing jobs, or they're moving to a different place, so they got to find a new job. So the situation is that we have to have the dreaded B word conversation, because that's what leads to success for clients.
Sure.
Right? Is when their spending plan can either be lowered, right? Or they can figure out what income they need to make to keep their own lifestyle post-divorce.
So although I'm not a financial like you are, a lot of times I'll say, your budget goes to your core values. So what are you prioritizing? And if most of your money is going to Uber Eats delivery, how is that really adding value to your life?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I help them approach what we can and cannot cut. But sometimes we have a sanitized budget, for this is the bare bones. This is what it takes to put food, shelter, and what if it's education for children, and a car or 2 or 3. Depending on how big your fleet of children are. So I think when we talk about core values, that helps them actually kind of comprehend, okay, so maybe I don't need the luxury vehicle. Maybe I can swap that out. But that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. In terms of a spreadsheet, when the folks that I was talking about, the ones, I call them the non-financials in the relationship, who say, I just always went in the joint account. If there was money there, I just spent it, and it was great. Well, the joint account is gone. Mm-hmm. So, how do we move from there? And so you talked about projections. So how do you get the data in order to formulate your projections with the software you were talking about?
Absolutely. We do almost our own same discovery like you guys do with the divorce process, to where if we've already had an engagement meeting, somebody's coming to my office, we hear more about their goals, see if we're the right fit for them, they hire us, right? We go through that process. We actually send them home with homework, right? So that is a checklist that I need from them, right? Documents that I need from them. They can bring it in person, right? We can scan them, upload it, whatever it may be. I need their whole financial life, right? Because I am building them a plan. I'm making their data my data, right? I'm understanding every single data point within their financial life, and knowing, what do they spend? What do they like? What do they want to spend their money on in the future? Education, right? Do they want a new car, right? Getting all those details and making sure that I have all of them for their financial plan. So it is, again, another discovery process for the clients.
Even if your client can tell you what they know, what do you do when you don't have all of the information available to you at your fingertips to make that projection? Yeah,
so am I hearing we're in the middle of discovery, maybe haven't gotten all the other side yet?
Yes.
So we can give them almost kind of like a starter plan and kind of show them, here's what it could be. Now, I tell them it's not perfect, right? It's always an estimation when we're giving them projections. But if we don't have the other side quite yet, right, I need them to understand, here's how it could be if there's a lot more debt. So I'm going through one case right now, and she doesn't know how much debt is out there.
Oh.
Because it's hidden in other spouse's name, right? And for that, that's a big unknown, very scary to think about, but she doesn't have clarity on what's out there. So it's more so equipping them to be ready for that big high dollar amount that's out there. So whether it be they need more liquid cash or they need liquidity to then pay this down in the future or the asset that they'll grab from the divorce. But at some point, yes, we do have to wait in our process to then get discovery from the other side, and then we can build them their financial plan.
And so to your point about debt, sometimes that is one of the albatrosses around the neck of the estate that we don't even know about at the beginning. I'll have, a disclosure 30 days in, well, we haven't paid income taxes for 5 years. And so that's a debt that the IRS is not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we're going to consolidate this and do it like consumer credit. We're going to pay it off over time. They're coming for their money. And is that sometimes really difficult news to educate clients about, a consumer debt is different than an IRS lien that will actually happen and levy that could go on their paycheck versus, I just bought too much last month on Amazon. It's no big deal.
Yeah, it's always having them understand the differences between consumer and IRS debt. And having that conversation of, hey, yeah, you can negotiate with sometimes work with credit repair people. We have credit repair specialists that we call all the time to where we understand, okay, here's the amount of debt that's out there. How can we help? And that's not necessarily, hey, I'm going to call and negotiate with credit companies to then, can we get this lowered? Can we negotiate on a payment plan? But it's understanding that they need to get connected to the right people. They need to then lean on their expertise to make sure that they can consolidate this debt, take care of it. But yes, to your point, focusing on IRS debt being one of the most crucial pieces because it does accumulate and it can grow to a higher number.
At the end of the day, though, what we're looking at is giving people options because I always say empowerment equals options. So if you have a finite amount of money, just say it's $1 million that you're going to be awarded, knowing that you can use that with real estate, with I want to, achieve my next goal in my next career because as to your point, you said some of these people haven't worked in 10 years. So how do you help clients when they're with you explore their options and then give them homework to do research on, well, do you want to see how much it costs to become a licensed fill in the blank with your next career?
Great question. We have that conversation all the time because what I've done for clients and what we've really allowed them to see in the plan is we're almost building them a ramp because I give them a time period. I say, okay, is it 12 months? Is it 24 months? Usually in their financial plan, I will tell them, here's how fast it needs to be rather than they might say, look, I need 3 years. It's like, no, we got to push a little faster on this. But we allow the plan to then show them, okay, how much income do you need to go make? And here's your ramp. Here's what we need to focus on. But yes, if they do get awarded a lump sum of money, we give them advice on for your goals and what you've told me that you want to prioritize back to the spending conversation. Here's where you should put your dollars, right? Do we need to buy a house? Should we wait? Do we need to go get an income so we can qualify for a mortgage? Does that mean that in 2 years' time we're buying a house? It's all based on specific situations, but in general, we allow their goals to direct where we want to put their dollars. And we walk through how can we maximize those because the ramp is only so good if they can go make that income. Because we've seen multiple times where people have spent down the money, right? And then they don't answer our phone calls when we're having a conversation with them, right? And because
you mean avoidance is not a solution?
Yeah. Yeah, surprising, shocking, right? To our audience out there, shocking that avoidance is not the solution for those clients.
So a lot of times I get the question, well, on the spreadsheet, we have this amount of cash and we have this amount of debt. Well, I'm just going to go and take all the cash that I have and I'm just going to discharge all the debt. What would your advice to that client be? And you can tell them.
Go to the camera here. So it's always making sure that we know what type of debt is it, right? So if we're going to consumer debt, high interest debt, and we start to look at almost the break even, for instance, okay, is this mortgage at a great loan rate? We need to keep it because you can actually earn more dollars somewhere else, right? All based off specific situations. But I think for the audience to understand, one, based off your goals, but also sometimes it's to free up cash flow. Not a lot of people know this, right? Is that if you do have that debt out there, you're still paying on it, right? You're paying
Mhm.
monthly payments, or it's accumulating interest if you're not making payments. So it can be growing to a larger amount. That is one, if I show them what they're actually paying, can be scary for clients to see. But the conversation would be is to, one, talk with your financial advisor first and understand what you should go after. Because if, let's say you do pay down the mortgage, give a specific example. Pay down the mortgage, suing away a couple $100,000. You have now lost a couple $100,000 into your mortgage. If you need to go access again, well, now you got to go make another mortgage. So the concern that we have is that if you haven't, again, built that ramp for yourself, understood your goals or what you actually need post-divorce, then you could be making huge financial mistakes that now give you a big burden in the future.
And so the moral of that story is definitely don't just look at a pile of cash and decide how you want to do it willy-nilly, but talk to someone like you or Sam to understand what that looks like and what the implications are, also given cash flow and hopefully an income.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I know in preparing for a lot of our hearings, we have to do what's called a financial information statement, which is what you refer to as the budget, or you had a nicer word for it.
Mm-hmm.
In doing those, it's the definition in Texas law is minimum reasonable needs. So can you speak to some of the maybe funny / interesting reasonable needs that you've heard about in our area in Collin County and surrounding counties?
Yeah, I think we've seen quite a few together.
Sure.
On this, but it can be, oh, I need this for my going out to eat budget, or I need this for my travel budget, right? A lot of people put a very high number on their minimum reasonable needs because they want to have access to more dollars, right? But yes, I have seen to where it's the spending budget, it's the car budget, it's the mommy makeover budget, it's the, okay, I got to look good, my gym, or we've seen out of the blue, right, where people have conversations of, oh, I didn't know we needed to set aside this much money for, you needed to go to a massage therapist every week, or...
Well, I had a membership, Luke.
Yeah.
I mean, it just got auto drafted. I don't think I even pay for that.
Yeah, well, I show them, they do. At the end of the day, they do, but it is funny to see what people do spend money on. And again, it goes back to your conversation of, are you really prioritizing your funds for your goals? Because yes, we've seen, as a recent case, lots of dollars are going to something that they really should not be spending on.
The word I like to use with my clients is, did you know that about $7,000 is leaking out of your estate a month? Like it's just a passive, like a runny toilet or something. I didn't even know that. I mean, I might have heard it, but do you go through going through credit card statements, brokerage statements, just nitty gritty, almost just relearning or learning the basics. And is that something that you guys do in your office?
We have done it before. Yes, for those people who don't know their budget or don't know their spending plan, yes, I've gone to the granular detail of looking at credit card statements for a full year and understanding what's going out the door. And when I call that client and I tell them, here's what your spending looks like, every single time on the phone, I had no idea that this much was going out the door. And so, yes, that's one piece that we can give a little bit of clarity on, but also we do have the conversation of, do you understand what you're actually spending your dollars on? Because if you don't, this is what your life can look like post-divorce. And we have those fun conversations all the time, right? We allow them to have the clarity there, but we do also give them the brutal truth of what they really need to change.
And sometimes you give them the light at the end of the tunnel, and you give them the rah-rah speech of, maybe we should transition healthily and happily into a different chapter. What can that look like for a stay-at-home mom who's been home with the kids for 30 years, who last time she worked in the workforce was when she had just graduated from college?
It's a great question because we do get that a lot, and almost reinventing the wheel for some people. And what they don't realize is that the skills that they've accumulated over the 30 years, it could be, did you volunteer somewhere, right? Did you participate in the kids' sports? Did you, were you sitting on this board or an HOA? Or it could be a number of things that we can work with a resume specialist to create those skills on a resume for them. But yes, I do have hard conversations where I say, you need to start to understand how can you utilize your skills that you do have to now, again, reinvent the wheel. How do you do you enjoy being a therapist? Do you enjoy being a X, Y, and Z for your job? And then we have to point them in the right direction.
And then if you were credentialed, what will it take to update those credentials? What additional education will you need? And what's that runway look like? Because I get a lot of the hopelessness and despair of, well, I just don't even want to look because I don't even know what I'm good at. So we do channel, what you just said. Everyone has a lot of talents and you just don't know how monetized they can be. And especially with, marketing, if you're great at, you're helping run the entire PTA and sell ads to people who really, are you really getting anything about having to add in a PTA magazine? No, but you did it. You did a great job and you put on events. I mean, that translates exactly into some sort of event planning role or marketing role. So it sounds like you're almost helping people, with that huge transition, both financially and emotionally and into their next, future. Is that very fulfilling to you?
Oh, absolutely. That's the reason why I do this, right? Because this is some of the most fulfilling work that I do have is when we work with clients who are going through this transition and we get them to the other side. And when they get a job, they're creating an income and they're on their own and they feel, again, empowered to be on their own because they went from 2 people to now 1 person on their own, maybe even having all the kids at home, right? And maybe being a single mom now at this point, right? And it's a extremely fulfilling part of my job to where we can see them transition into a job, transition into creating their own income after it could be 30 years. And that's my favorite stories, right? That I love to talk about with, of course, on these podcasts, of course.
Sure. Also, not only do you do the day-to-day counseling of clients, but then you will attend mediation if you need to advise, here's the split. So we have this spreadsheet. For them, if you're the non-financial in the relationship, it can just look like a big Tetris chart, or it's so teensy-tiny that you can't read it. You put your readers on and you're still like, you have a migraine. And they'll say, well, what does this mean? So to the point of education and preparation and talking about the steps, you're like a financial personal trainer, right? So you don't just go from doing one day at the gym. You have multiple sessions over time, and then you start to talk about what does health look like, financial health. So getting from that mediation to the final decree, do you have a role in that? Do you have advice? And then even after the process?
That's a great question because, of course, I don't want to be there for 10 hours in mediation, right? So if you don't like me, then bring me there for 10 hours. But we can sit in the room because we're biased. We're always on one side of the divorce,
sure,
right? And we can have their financial plan ready to go so that if there's proposals and of course, there's mediation and not arguing, negotiating, right, on either side to where they come forward with a proposal, I can now change their financial plan and show them what it looks like post-divorce. And to say, is this we don't like to say good or great. It's just, this is what it looks like for you. This can get you towards your goals. Or maybe, no, actually, you can't take that, or you can't take the house, or you need this asset from the negotiation. So how do we then give and take, right? It's a game for give and take at the end of the day. But we give them advice during that process so they actually can understand what their life looks like post-divorce. Because you're in there for 10 hours, right? 8 hours, whatever it may be. You're tired. You have gone through this long process and you're finalizing it at the very end.
Sure.
And so for them to say, okay, I'm making a decision today that can impact something 10 years down the line. Yeah, of course I want to be in the room. Of course I want to give them advice because some people don't understand what it can impact in the future for them to take this asset, to take the house. They just don't understand what it can look like.
Well, and on that mediation day, I always say there's no takesies, backsies. And so it is a very final choice. We're not going to make you prisoner to our conference room, I promise, Luke. That sounds pretty miserable. But I think in a more efficient way, we can have you available by phone at certain times. And then in real time, you can make adjustments to the spreadsheet and then say, look, this amount of retirement dollars, if you tax affect it, is going to equal this amount. So you really should ask for more. Right. Not just the same. 100 is not 100. I always say 100 is like 60 or 65, tax affected.
Depending on the income and what they
Sure.
have. And so, yes, we look at the columns because your column might add up to be more, but is not actually netting more at the end of the day. When you take in taxes, tax-free assets as well, right? That's what we love to talk about all the time. We've seen HSAs, Roth IRAs, all the certain details to where people don't understand the taxability of those assets. So we're able to then hop on the phone to say, yeah, they just gave you a tax-free asset that's actually worth way more than what's in the account. Take it, right?
And don't act too victorious. Just say, I'm getting this and I'm so sad. We're so sad.
Keep it under the rug, right? Very quiet.
No victory dance during mediation.
Only when it's signed, then you can walk out the door.
You can do whatever you want after it's signed.
All the victory dances, but yes, we do all the time have that conversation to say, your column, it actually doesn't equal out, right? Let's make sure that we can take out taxes out of these accounts. Let's make sure that you actually understand what your future tax rate looks like as well, based off some incomes. We have some spouses can make a great income. And so we know that we need to focus heavily on tax-free versus the pre-tax portion. So it is, again, based off each specific situation, but people don't understand the taxability of accounts. And we want to make sure we can make it as clear as possible and actually show them what it looks like in the future for their financial plan.
That's a great role to have. And I will just tell you out there, both attorneys and clients, having someone like Luke Suminski and his team behind you and educating your clients on the things that they really need to understand and to be ready way before they come to the date of mediation and they have that final moment of signature that's going to bind them. And so thank you so much for being here. And we have only touched the tip of the iceberg on financial issues with divorce and the future, but we look forward to continuing this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Natalie.
And also, if viewers out there would like to reach Luke, could you tell them how they would do that and where your office is located?
Absolutely. So you can go to encirclewealthadvisors.com, or if you go to ameriprise.com and search Luke Suminski, hopefully they can get my last name, of course, on the title of this because it is hard to spell. They can find us through there. You can send me an email. There's ways to connect through that. You can also, of course, give us a call or connect through your divorce attorney, then have a conversation with us as well.
Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Appreciate it.